I'm Eddie Garcia, co-host of the Puck Podcast, with your Puck Podcast Hockey Minute, a recap of the night in the NHL, and a look ahead to upcoming action as we are one day away from the NHL trade deadline. We had 5 games on Wednesday. Matchup of the night was in Las Vegas, where the Golden Knights knocked off the Maple Leafs 5-2. Vegas jumping out to a 3-0 lead in the first period. They led 5-0 at one point. Tomas Hertl scored his 24th of the year. Jack Eichel his 20th. In the loss, Austin Matthews scored his 23rd. Mitch Marner his 19th. Vegas has now opened up a 6-point lead on Edmonton atop the Pacific Division. The Capitals beat the Rangers in New York 3-2 in overtime. Tom Wilson's 28th goal of the year in sudden death was the game winner. And Alexander Ovechkin did score his 32nd goal of the season. That's career goal number 885. He's now 10 away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal-scoring record with 20 games left in this regular season. In the loss for New York, Artemi Panarin scored his 26th goal. With the point in the overtime loss, New York moved into a tie with Ottawa for the final wildcard spot in the East, each with 67 points. The Senators got by the Blackhawks in Chicago 4-3 in overtime to move into that final wildcard spot in the East. Tim Stützle scored the overtime game winner, a deflection off his skate, his 20th of the year. Josh Norris gets his 20th as well, and Brady Tkachuk added his team-leading 24th of the season. In the loss for Chicago, Ryan Donato scored his 23rd goal of the year. The Canucks got by the Ducks 3-2. Vancouver scored all 3 of their goals in the second period. Jake DeBrusk gets his 22nd of the season, while defenseman Carson Soucy gets the game winner. Ducks goalie John Gibson, a player that might be moved before the deadline, left in the second period with an injury after a collision with Vancouver's Drew O'Connor. The Canucks move into a tie with Calgary for the final wildcard spot in the West, both with 67 points. And the Blues edge the Kings 3-2 in a shootout in LA. That's the 5th straight loss for the Kings. Robert Thomas scored his 17th of the year in the regulation and in the shootout. And Jake Neighbors scored his 16th of the year in regulation and then had a goal in the shootout as well. St. Louis extended its point streak to 11 games and moved 1 point out of the final wildcard spot in the West. Coming up on Thursday, 10 games on the schedule, 7 Eastern. The Panthers host the Blue Jackets, with Florida tied with Toronto for the top spot in the Atlantic Division coming in. The NHL's top team, the Jets, are in Philadelphia to take on the Flyers. The Red Wings, now 1 point out of the final wildcard spot in the East, are hosting the Utah Hockey Club. The Hurricanes are at home against the Bruins, and the Lightning host the Sabres. At 8 Eastern, the Predators host the Kraken. And the Stars are at home against the Flames. Calgary again tied for the final wildcard spot in the West. 9 Eastern, you've got the Oilers hosting the Canadiens. Montreal riding a 5-game winning streak, trying to stay in the hunt in the East for a playoff spot. And at 9:30 Eastern, it's the Avalanche hosting the Sharks. I'm Eddie Garcia. If you like this, please subscribe and like our YouTube channel and get notified for our latest shows. And check out our podcast recapping the past week in the NHL every Monday morning, which you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Puck Podcast.